Hello, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. We are just waiting a few more seconds as more folks are hopping on, but very happy Thursday to you. We have an incredible lineup of speakers that are going to be coming to you shortly. But before we get started, just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Lauren Jin. I'm the Program Manager for Food Experiences at ISS Guggenheimer, and I am the lucky one who gets to host today's session. As you are hopping on, I encourage you to head on over to the chat box and say hello. Let us know where you're joining from. Say hi to your fellow team members. Let us know what you're excited for. And we will love to hear from you. If you have questions throughout the event, if you have comments, if you have words of wisdom, that chat box is yours. So feel free to use that throughout the event. If you are not familiar, at ISS Guggenheimer, our diversity, equity, and inclusion culture is made up of 3 pillars, and those are lead, grow, and deepen. One of the goals of this diversity series is to help us become an organization that leads with inclusion, to unlock the power of diversity so that we can deepen our user and community partnerships. Now, it's December, and as we near the end of 2022, many of us are going to be baking up a storm. And I thought it is the perfect time to talk about some very unique and climate-friendly baking ingredients. We are incredibly lucky to have Caroline Cotto joining us today as an upcycled ingredient industry expert and COO and co-founder of Renewal Mill. I'm super excited to introduce all of you to Caroline Cotto. Welcome, Caroline.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Excited to be here.
Now, we have had a lot of fun working with Caroline, working with Renewal Mill products in our teaching kitchens over the last year. And I thought we need to share the wealth. Like we can't keep this hidden. We need to share Renewal Mill with everyone. But Caroline, we also want to get to know you a little bit more as well. So before we dive into Renewal Mill and your ingredients, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got your start in the food industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to joke that I was destined to work in food because my last name means cooked in Italian. I'm from a town called Sandwich, Massachusetts, and my parents own an ice cream store named after me. So really kind of grew up in the food industry and just have always had a real passion for it. So I spent my early career kind of on the nutrition side of food. I worked for Michelle Obama's Let's Move initiative on child obesity and did some work on child malnutrition. And then kind of did a brief stint in tech. So for everybody working out of Google offices or other tech companies, had an experience running a women's diversity program at a large tech company. And then was like, no, food is really my passion. Would like to get back to that. So ended up combining food and tech by working for a startup accelerator in the Midwest that was sponsored by Cargill. And it was there that I actually met my co-founder for Renewal Mill, who was bringing the idea for the company to the accelerator and looking for a co-founder. So been working on Renewal Mill full-time about 5 years now.
Wow. And I feel like you were definitely destined to work in food growing up in Sandwich and having an ice cream shop named after you for sure.
Yeah, so ice cream is a fun business. It's very competitive where I'm from on Cape Cod. Everybody has like their favorite local ice cream spot in the summer. So you have to be innovative to draw the crowds.
So it totally makes sense what brought you into the food industry. What is it about the industry that kind of inspires you to continue working and stay?
Yeah, I think through all of my experiences in food, I kind of realized that a lot of the issues that we have are not behavioral issues or like individual issues with someone eating a specific thing on their plate, but more like a system-wide level issue. And that comes down to whether it's like food access. So, child obesity is often a result of not having access to healthy food in your neighborhood. And also things like food waste, where climate change is largely being driven by problems with food manufacturing and, kind of wasted food along the entire supply chain. So I was eager to work on like a systems level project. And that's kind of what keeps me here today, because food waste accounts for approximately 8% of total greenhouse gas emissions. And according to some research, it's kind of one of the most important things we can do is reduce food waste in order to help solve that climate problem. And I live in California now, so I'm seeing the very real impacts of climate change right here in my backyard, and want to do something tangible to help. But also kind of showing that, food is ultimately something that brings us together and is super delicious and fun. So we can kind of tackle climate change, but in an approachable, fun way.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about upcycled ingredients first. For folks who might not be familiar with just upcycled ingredients, like this is a really up and coming trending category, right? Especially looking into 2023. I saw Whole Foods 2023 trends. Upcycled ingredients, definitely part of that. Can you just explain to us like what is an upcycled ingredient?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to remember that upcycled food is not a new thing. I mean, it might be trending right now, but it's a concept that's been around for a long time. So we like to say your grandma was probably upcycling. Every chef who's ever worked in a kitchen with a tight budget is trying to squeeze as much value out of every ingredient that they purchase. And upcycling is kind of just applying that to the larger like manufacturing level or on-farm level. So at our core, when we talk about upcycled ingredients, we're trying to make sure that all of the food that we grow and produce is put to its best and highest use, which is feeding people. So in the case of recycling, you would, take something to be recycled, you would break it down into its component parts and then reuse it in something else. With upcycling, we're taking products that are like normally byproducts or kind of off-spec fruits and vegetables and just elevating them to a higher use by using them in new products rather than having to break them down first. And the official definition of upcycled food also kind of has a clause that talks about a tangible or measurable climate impact. So we're not really referring to hot dogs in the sense that like people might always use like, bits and bobs of pork to create hot dogs, but something that like was previously going to a food waste destination and now can be returned to the food supply chain.
Thank you. Okay, so now let's talk about how that applies to Renewal Mill and some of your products. I know we have a short video, so maybe I can play that video and then you can talk us through that. Is that a good place to start?
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. We've got this video, and here we go. Okay. Hold on, let's go to the beginning. Okay, is it playing? Great.
Great. Yeah. So thanks for that, Lauren. Basically, what the video is showing and what we do is my co-founder had previously started a juicing business. And for anyone who's ever juiced anything, when you put something into the juicing machine, you get juice out one side of it. And on the other side, you're left with a lot of pulp. So in her experience, it was mostly like carrots and all of this fruit and vegetable pulp that she had in excess. And then when we met the owner of a large tofu company, we learned that this was happening in a much larger scale at manufacturing facilities. So what essentially we do is we work with tofu producers, soy milk producers, and oat milk producers to take all of the pulp left over from making plant-based milks and dehydrate it and mill it into a high fiber, high protein, gluten-free flours. So our flagship flour is called Okara flour, and that's coming from the pulp left over when you make soy milk. And then we have an oat milk flour, which is coming from the pulp left over when you make oat milk.
And I've had the pleasure of working with both the Okara flour and the oat milk flour and like your gluten-free 1-to-1 blend. And I will say that it's been super, super fun to see how I can transform my, favorite recipes into upcycled recipes. And for our team members who are on the call, who love baking, who love being in the kitchen and experimenting, this can be kind of like a really fun next step in your baking journey. And we're actually going to hear from Chef Matthew on our Guggenheimer team later, and he's going to tell us all about the fun experiments he's been doing in the teaching kitchen. But Caroline, first, things can't always be easy, right? I'm curious about, while you were getting Renewal started, did you face any big roadblocks, any challenges? How did you as a co-founder kind of overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so Renewal started back in 2016. The first 2 years of the company, we were really focused on the idea of how do we take these byproducts and bring them to market. And the big challenge there is that these pulps start spoiling within 4 to 5 hours after production. Wow. So you really have to deal with them extremely quickly. They're also about 80% water, which makes it really heavy to transport them anywhere. So that was the biggest problem that we had to first overcome was we need to actually co-locate ourselves inside of the manufacturing facilities of our partners so that we can process really quickly and keep that food safety standard and prevent trucking it anywhere. And then once we did that, we kind of burst onto the scene with this ingredient that nobody had ever heard of called Okara. And it's actually a storied ingredient in countries like Japan, where if you made soy milk at home, you would never throw away that Okara. You would use it in different things like okonomiyaki or saute with vegetables. But here in the US, almost everybody reads it as okra powder and nobody knows how to use it. So we found it pretty difficult to try to just sell the ingredient on its own. So we started making products like baking mixes and ready-to-eat cookies as a way to introduce this novel ingredient to folks, but through a familiar format. So we make traditional baking mixes like brownies, cookies, and then also ready-to-eat chocolate chip cookies and things of that nature so that we could say, hey, this has all of these benefits for the climate and from a nutritional perspective, but it tastes like a traditional flour you've had before, or it tastes like a traditional baked good. I think otherwise we're a very lean team. So there's only 4 of us full time working on this, but we've been part of this larger upcycled food community, which has been really cool to see that momentum growing. So we helped start the Upcycled Food Association, which is a trade association for all of the companies working in this space. And it's grown from like 9 to just under 300 members in about 3 years. So really exciting to see the impact that we can make together, but definitely a lot of work to do on educating the average consumer on what upcycled food is.
Yeah, can I ask a follow-up question? I'm wondering if you run into just like perception issues, right? Like upcycling and people thinking, oh, you're trying to sell, waste essentially, and not being super excited about that.
Yeah, I think the conversation has shifted quite a bit. So when we started back in 2016, 2017, I think we got a lot more of those questions, but people were also just figuring out for the first time that food waste was even a problem. And that statistic that 40% of the food we grow is not eaten here in the US had really just come to light. I think if you survey folks now, they know that food waste is a problem, but now they're more eager to know what they can do to help. And we really try to give that sort of forest for the trees view about upcycled food, so that when you talk about upcycled food, we're talking about fighting food waste, which is talking about helping fight climate change, and making that link for people so that it's more of a positive spin. And we also try to make it really clear that it's not food waste, it's wasted food. Like, there is value and nutrition left in this product, and it's super arbitrary that we're calling something that comes out one side of a machine food and something that comes out the other side waste when it's processed in the exact same way. So I think upcycling is a term that the industry has rallied around as a way to educate consumers and give that positive spin to it. But yeah, I think we really shied away from using the word waste in the beginning, but now we've kind of started to own it and say, like, everybody agrees that we want to fight food waste together. So let's do that.
Yeah, I would say increasingly we're seeing consumers ask, right? They want to know what companies are doing to reduce food waste, what they're doing to help climate change. And so I think you're absolutely right. That narrative is definitely shifted, and you're really well positioned.
Yeah, I think you see it through companies like Imperfect Foods and Misfits too. They've really done a lot to kind of change that narrative for consumers of like, oh, we have these kind of ugly vegetables, but they, taste just as good as the vegetables I buy at the grocery store. So, let's not call things like, be more careful about our language.
Thank you. So for those who are watching right now, remember, if you have any questions about upcycled ingredients, if you have questions for Caroline, feel free to add them to the chat box, and we'll save a little bit of time to answer those. But Caroline, so Renewal Mill is a women-founded company, right? And statistics show that women are outnumbered by men in C-suite roles, 1 to 4, or even sometimes 1 to 5. Do you have any advice for women looking to move into leadership roles in the food industry, or maybe some advice for our allies?
Yeah, it could be challenging for sure. I think we see it a lot in the fundraising environment and trying to fundraise for Renewal Mill. But I'm really heartened by other women in the space. So I think it's important to find your tribe of strong women who can all support and advocate for each other, whether or not that's something as simple as writing like a LinkedIn review for your female colleague to kind of talk about projects they've done or kind of lift them up, or put their name in the hat for opportunities. Like, for example, I sit on the board for the Upcycled Food Association, and we're constantly sourcing new candidates for the board. And so I try to put up female and diverse candidates and put my name behind them. So I think it's just important to, first of all, advocate for yourself if you're looking to get into a leadership role, and then find people who can support you, whether or not that's a mentor or just, your female colleagues. I found that's one of my favorite parts about working in the food industry, is just all of my fellow female founders that we can lean on for support.
Thank you so much. And I was really excited because ISS Guggenheimer, we had our Women in Culinary graduation just recently. So we have a fierce lineup of women in the culinary industry who are just doing incredible things with our company.
That's amazing.
We do have a question, actually. I'm going to pop it up on the screen here. Erin is asking, is the byproduct production consistent enough in quality and quantity, or do you have to constantly retool your products?
That's a great question. Yeah. So we've been very strategic about what byproducts we've brought into our portfolio thus far. We're hoping to grow it in the future. But for Okara and for oat milk, right now the production is consistent and the quality is consistent because we're working with very large producers who have a lot of volume. So we're able to take the full volume from their facilities and supply our current customers. But also, if you look at soy milk producers across the country and you test all of the different byproduct streams, it's pretty consistent across all of them. So we're lucky in that regard. But when we're deciding what ingredients to bring into our portfolio, we want to make sure that we have a consistent enough stream so that we can offer it as an ingredient without fear of running out of supply, because obviously we don't want people to be making a product just for the byproduct, if that makes sense. But so oat milk is a growing industry, tofu is a growing industry. So that's kind of why we've chosen to focus on those two. In the future, we're going to be looking at a corn flour made from unpopped popcorn kernels. and
Cool.
some whole green banana flour. So milling like whole green bananas, because bananas are actually the number one wasted food in the grocery store.
Yes, that is true, actually. A lot of folks don't realize that, but bananas are the number one wasted food in the grocery store. So quick follow-up question to that. Jose is asking, you mentioned you worked with like larger companies, right? So was it difficult to convince those larger companies to work with you because you were newer and starting and small?
Yeah, it's definitely been a long road. So we've been around for about 6 years. I'd say the average ingredient sale takes between like 2 to 3 years to execute. By the time you kind of introduce the ingredient, get people into the kitchen to use it in R&D, then get the marketing team on board. But I think we've been really lucky that as we've grown, so too has the demand for sustainable ingredients. And we're really able to help companies hit some of their ESG goals because we can quantify on a per pound basis how much carbon is being saved by using our flour, how much water is being saved, and how much food waste is being diverted from landfill. So I think it's an ever evolving conversation, but like to your earlier point, Lauren, I think consumers are demanding from the companies that they purchase from that, they have more sustainable practices. And so there's that positive pressure for these companies to work with companies like ours. And we do, partner with them really to do like pilots and stuff. So we're scaling it to our ability right now, but hoping to grow in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about food and products. This holiday season, Caroline, are there any, products we definitely have to try? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so we sell our pure flours, which is what's in the bottom. I don't know what it looks like on your screen, bottom left, maybe. Yes. So the 1-to-1 baking flour is a great cup for cup substitute. If you have a favorite family recipe and you want to try to make it gluten-free, that one is the best cup for all purpose. Our newest product on the right is a chai oat muffin mix that we're excited about because it's our first product that's sweetened exclusively with date sugar, and that date sugar is also an upcycled product. So would love to get people trying that and get feedback on it, and hoping to do some more products in that vein as well. And then our sugar cookie mix, which all of our products are vegan and gluten-free. That's another holiday favorite because it's great for rolling out if you want to do traditional like cut cookies, or if you just want to do sort of like drop and bake sugar cookies for decorating for the holiday season. It's a great product for that.
Okay, so all of you out there, whether you're looking to experiment and transition some of your favorite recipes into upcycled recipes and want to experiment with the flours, those are an option for you. If you're at home baking and you want kind of like an easy, delicious treat, the baking mixes are an awesome option as well. I'm going to bring Chef Matthew on here. Chef Matthew works with our Teaching Kitchen team for Guggenheimer. And Chef Matthew, you've had the opportunity this year to experiment with countless different ingredients and recipes, right? Can you tell us a little bit about like your experience working with this product?
It's really great because I just started with the company, and I think on my first day, Lauren was talking about this wonderful okara flour in the Left Coast cookie, and I was like, well, let's make a lot of really fun things. So we got to use it in like pancakes. We made a really nice whole wheat pie dough. A lot of the different things that we did is we tried to not just use it only as a gluten-free product, but as just a product to maybe replace some of our flour as we were making different products. That way we can use some upcycled ingredients, maybe even improve the quality of the baked good overall. So we had a lot of really great successes. It's very easy to work with. I found it very similar or comparable to, say, a coconut flour or bean flour, because it has a very hygroscopic variety to it. So it likes to absorb moisture. So you were able to use less product overall to still get the same kind of bulk that you get out of your normal products.
And when you go about thinking, okay, I have this awesome shortbread cookie recipe, right? I really want to incorporate some okara flour into this. What is your thought process? What is your method?
So I was very, very fortunate that a lot of the things that we made, they were like nothing but net. We just slam dunks every single time on the first go because we followed a very simple formula. We took a fourth of the weight of the flour and used that as okara flour. And then we removed half of the total flour. So overall, if you added the okara and the original flour together, there's about 75% of the flour in there. And because of the hygroscopic nature, it bulked up and it worked really well. Now, in some recipes, such as the shortbread, we had to do a couple more iterations because there is a little bit less moisture naturally in that product. And the easiest solution was we just tried to reduce the okara flour just a little bit more, and we got a wonderful product. We did a test on a blue corn shortbread using it. So it was a gluten-free shortbread using blue corn flour and okara flour, and it was delicious. It was it's now a staple here in Austin.
And what I love, and I think you did probably maybe like 10 or 12 different recipes, maybe even more. But what I love the most is just the diversity of the recipes, right? So from pancakes to a pie dough, you had a baked cider donut. Who doesn't love a cheddar bay biscuit? I love a cheddar bay biscuit. We had red velvet cookies. You had your blue corn shortbread. Didn't you have like a oatmeal mesquite?
An oatmeal mesquite flour. So we actually got to mix multiple flours because mesquite flour is also a really great gluten-free flour. So we're taking multiple different sources of upcycled flours or ancient grains and other stuff like that and getting to utilize multiple products together. I really like the product because if you're familiar with the premise of gluten-free baking, every different ingredient has its purpose whenever we're baking. And so okara flour fills the role of that protein-rich flour that we use like bean flour is in. And so it's been very easy to work with by doing different things like that, thinking along those lines as we are replacing and adapting our recipes. Yeah.
Thank you. And you teach cooking classes, right? And so have users said anything like, what is this? This is so cool. Like, what has been the reaction from the user when you tell them you're using an upcycled ingredient?
I think my two favorite reactions is we had one user that just was like, I love that you're using upcycled ingredients. This is so great for the environment. And that's like usually the biggest sentiment. But my absolute favorite one is we did the cheddar bay biscuit, and we have a user who very much likes his recipes as they are. He doesn't like variation. He even told me to my face, he's like, I'm not a big fan of gluten-free products. And he came in, tried the biscuit, and he was like, this is gluten-free? I was like, yeah, super easy. It's delicious. The okara flour gave it a nice crumbliness. And it was very akin to like a shortbread kind of flaky texture that you're looking for in your biscuits. And so it just worked well for the product. So it's not always about just only making the product to fit a certain dietary restriction, but also just making a good product, you know? So you get the best of both worlds.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your enthusiasm and challenging yourself to kind of think, what's next? What can I do? And what's next? So thank you for that. And I'm sure we have a lot of delicious recipes that you're willing to share out with our team members.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay. So Caroline, we have a couple more questions for you. We have a couple more minutes left. So Harold is asking, are there long-term goals for diversion percentages?
So you mean total diversion? Obviously, we would like to divert 100% of food waste, but we're doing our best. I think some of the most inspiring numbers right now are we helped create a certification for upcycled food through the Upcycled Food Association. And there's a number of products besides ours that have been certified. I think it's about 200 at this point. And collectively, those products are projected to prevent like 995 million pounds of food waste this year. So just under 1 billion pounds, which is super exciting. I think for us, we're going to end the year at about 650,000 pounds of food waste diverted through our different byproduct streams. So hoping to get that percentage as high as possible. But
that's amazing. Can I just ask everyone in the chat box to send some congratulations to Caroline, because that's incredible. And thank you for what you're doing for our planet. Lastly, before we're out of time, where can our team members find your products? How can we learn more?
Yeah, so we're at renewalmill.com with all of our products. And then we launched nationally this year in Whole Foods. So both our flours and our baking mixes can be found in your local Whole Foods in the baking aisle. And then we have a lot of presence on the coast, so California and New York primarily, and we also just launched in Central Market for folks in Texas. So yeah, lots of ways to find us.
Amazing. Okay, well, I think we're all out of time, but Caroline, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge with us and just really inspire us as we go into this heavy baking season and into 2023. I think all of our culinarians and just lovers of food alike are super excited to get their hands on your products and start experimenting. So thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
No, thank you. It's super exciting to hear what Chef Matt and everybody is doing with the product, and that's what keeps us motivated. So really appreciate you all.
And to all of our fellow Guggenheimer team members, thank you for hopping on, whether you're watching this on record or you're watching us live. It was great to have you along with us. And until next time, we'll see you later. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Bye.